Okay, so basically, I have been doing every week for the last. We are now in week 10. Okay, so I'll just be doing my lecture, and I won't be checking what's in the chat area. So if there's any issue like you can't hear me or suddenly I get cut off, you have to let me know. Okay, the fastest way is to unmute and speak up. Okay, so I will be sharing my slide shortly, and I will not be able to see what is in the chat area. So in case I get cut off, sometimes internet issue, whatever, you just unmute and speak up. Okay, don't just keep quiet, because I'll just be wasting my time like talking to myself. So I hope you have no issues with hearing me. If there are no issues, then I will start my lecture. Can I just have a quick indication in the chat area that you can hear me? Just want to know whether you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you. I just want to share my slides after this. So you just listen first, and then at the end we will have a question and answer. Any question you can ask me at the end. Okay. Okay, so today we're going to look at a very important aspect of corporate governance, okay, which is directors and board structure. It's very important aspect of corporate governance, okay, directors and board structure. Okay, so today we're going to look at the roles and responsibilities of the board of directors. What are the roles and responsibilities of the board of directors? Board independence, why is it such an important issue? The balance and effectiveness of board of directors, meaning the makeup of the board of directors. What are the things we need to keep in mind in order to ensure that the board of directors are effective? Okay, remember we have seen in previous lectures, go back to the earlier lectures, look at the slides when we had the external stakeholders, internal stakeholders, and auditors. Okay, so where do the board of directors fit into that structure? Best practices of the board, this you can refer to, we will refer to the MCCG, which is our Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance, which I mentioned, I think I've already mentioned before, in April of this year, 2021, it has now been updated. Okay, so whenever you refer to the MCCG, go to the latest version, which is the April 2021 version. Okay, and then the types of board committees, members and importance of board committees. So in our module, we'll focus on 3 committees basically: nomination committee, risk committee. Okay, risk and audit is actually one committee. Okay, risk and audit committee are together, and it's not in the slide here, but it's also another committee, is the remuneration committee. So basically, we're going to focus on 3 board committees. Okay, 3 board committees, namely the nomination committee, remuneration committee, and audit committee. Okay, this is where our focus will be. Okay, I repeat: nomination committee, remuneration committee, and then audit committee. What are the roles, what are the functions, what are the processes, and what are the best practices? So this is what we're going to cover in this. If we cannot finish it today, then we will follow up in the following week's lecture. Okay, so basically, just to recap, we're going to look at directors and board structure, very, very important aspect of corporate governance. Okay, so if you haven't done so yet, I think you should, now we're already in week 10, start looking up on the internet. You just go to the website of the Securities Commission of Malaysia. Securities Commission Malaysia, just type in Google Securities Commission of Malaysia and then look for Malaysian Code on Corporate Governance. Okay, since this is being developed by them, Securities Commission of Malaysia. If you look into the website, sometimes it's in BM bahasa Suruhanjaya Security Malaysia. Okay, Suruhanjaya Security Malaysia, or Securities Commission of Malaysia. So we're going to look at the powers, the functions, and responsibilities of the board of directors. Okay. So remember, in one of the earlier lectures, when we looked at the structure, we had at the top we had the shareholders, in the middle we had the BOD, and at the bottom we had the management. Always keep that in mind. So that will give you a mental picture. So we have shareholders at the top. If you recall that slide where we had the arrows going up and down and so on. So I want you to focus on the middle, the group in the middle, which is the internal stakeholders. At the top we have the shareholders, in the middle we have the BOD, and then below we have the management. So today we are going to look at the functions, powers, responsibilities of the BOD. Keep in mind, BOD is not responsible for the day-to-day running of the company. It's not their job. Okay, I hope you're very, very clear about this. Don't get confused. They are not involved in the day-to-day running of the company. It's not their responsibility. That is the responsibility of the management. Okay, theirs is more of an oversight role. They are more of an oversight role. Then we are going to identify and explain the role and function of each board committee. So I just mentioned earlier, we are going to focus on 3 board committees: nomination committee, remuneration committee, audit committee. Okay, and then we're also going to look at the best practices to be adopted by both the nomination committee and audit committee. Nomination committee, audit committee, and this left out in this slide is the remuneration committee. So take note, 3 committees: audit committee, nomination committee, remuneration committee, audit committee. So that's where our focus will be. If you go and look at any financial report of any company, better look at the bigger companies, listed companies, you will see they will have the details of who are the members of these board subcommittees. Okay, which is this is a very important aspect of corporate governance. Okay, very important aspect of corporate governance. So let's look at the overview first. This is the overview. You can see a picture there at the top right hand corner. Okay, this is of course taken from UK in the old days. Okay, because basically we are following the Anglo-Saxon model. We have mentioned this many times already. We are following the Anglo-Saxon model, okay, which was developed in the UK. And in my previous lecture last week, I mentioned about the Cadbury Committee. Cadbury Committee, way back in 1992 in the UK, they set up this committee called the Cadbury Committee. So when you do your revision, whatnot, you should focus on the Cadbury Committee. This was headed by Sir Adrian Cadbury, who is a member of the famous Cadbury chocolate family. Okay, so look up this Cadbury Committee. They were the first committee in UK and probably in the English-speaking world to come out with detailed guidelines on best practices in corporate governance. So always go back and refer to Cadbury Committee. So what did they, when they spoke about the roles of the BOD, what did they mention? The first role is the leadership role. The first role is the leadership role. Okay, so the BOD is responsible to formulate policies and to determine the overall strategic direction of the company. Whose responsibility is that? It is the responsibility of the BOD, not the responsibility of the management. I want to make it very clear because I see a lot of students confused about this. So what is the responsibility of the BOD? Leadership role. To determine the strategic direction of the company. This is not the job of management. Okay, management basically take instruction from the BOD. They answer to the BOD. Where day-to-day running, yes, they are in charge. But in aspect like strategic direction, no, it's not their job. It's the BOD's job. Okay, the second one is the control role. They have a control role. They need to monitor the executive management to pursue shareholders' wealth maximization and interests. Now, if there is no system of checks and balances, then it has been proven over time that this management who's involved in the day-to-day running of the company, because of this, what we call as information asymmetry, they know more than the others because they are running the company on a day-to-day basis. So if they take advantage of that gap, which we call the information asymmetry, to undertake activities in their own self-interest, then it becomes a problem. So this is where the board comes in. They have to monitor. Executive management, yes, appointed by us to run the company, but we need to check on them. Okay, otherwise they will just take advantage of quote unquote our ignorance to pursue their own wealth maximization, not to pursue the shareholders' wealth maximization interest. Okay, there have been many cases, and you just go to the Google and type scandal, you get plenty of cases where the management has taken advantage of this information asymmetry, this gap in the knowledge, to pursue policies which are not in the best interest of the shareholders. There are plenty of cases. Okay, so basically coming back to the role of the BOD, there are two main roles: the leadership role and the control role. Okay, this is actually the job of the BOD. Now, in relation to the leadership role, okay, remember we spoke about the leadership role, right? So what exactly we are going to do? So in relation to the leadership role, we have to provide strategic leadership, roles and policies. This is not the job of the management. This is not, be very clear. Okay, I don't want to come back to this again later on. This is not the job of the management. Strategic leadership role is the role of the board of directors. And then to supervise the strategic formulation process and to review the organization strategies. Again, this is not the job of the management. This is the job of the board of directors. And then to develop policies, expenditure policy, investment policy, risk management policy, all of this comes under the leadership role of the board of directors. Okay? You should not pass the buck, expect the management to do this. You will be failing. You will be failing in your job as a board member. Okay, these are your responsibilities. Okay, when I say your, meaning as a board member. This is part and parcel of your job, leadership role. Okay. Continuing on of leadership role, what else are the leadership role involves? What else does the leadership role involve? Appoint, supervise, remunerate top management. So top management includes the CEO, CFO, COO, CTO, CDO. Nowadays, have a lot of terminology. Okay, CEO, CFO. This one we already know. CTO, Chief Technology Officer, Chief Operating Officer, Chief Digital Officers. All of this is the top management. So we have to appoint them. You cannot just appoint and say, okay, you do your job. You have to check on them, supervise. If you don't check on them, you give them a free hand to do whatever they want to do. This is when all the scandal will happen. Okay, because they're not being checked upon. They're not being supervised. Okay, that's the first leadership role of the board of directors. Then develop and implement investors relation program, also known as shareholder communication policy. Two aspects here. Investors relations program. Now you cannot, for example, keep the investors in the dark. Suddenly one fine day, the CEO calls a press conference, a media conference, say, okay, we have decided to invest in this project in Indonesia. You never informed the shareholders before this. They only come to know about it through the media conference, through the press conference. It's a very bad way of doing things. Okay, so you got to have an investor relation program, shareholder communication policy, whereby you've already informed them. They already know. They're not surprised. They're not shocked to hear this news. They already know, they've been informed in advance. So when the CEO comes before the TV camera or whatever it is, the press conference, and makes this announcement, they already know about it. Okay, so this is what we mean by implement investor relation program, shareholder communication policy. Okay, this is another important role of the board of directors. Okay, another important role of the board of directors is proper board succession planning and appointment. Okay, this one, appointment, very important. When you appoint people to the board, they have to be qualified. They must have some background in this industry. You cannot appoint somebody who has no background in this industry to be a board member. He will be out of his depth. He wouldn't know what is going on. He won't be able to contribute anything during the board of director meeting. He will be like, sorry to say, use this word, dead wood. Sit in the board meeting, cannot communicate, cannot give any ideas. Because he doesn't know what's going on. There's no background in the industry. That's one aspect. Appointment. And then training. Now in Malaysia, okay, before you can be the director in a listed company, you have to have training. It's conducted by the Institute of Directors Malaysia. You have to go for training. I don't know how many hours you have to accumulate every year or every other year. Go for training and accumulate a certain number of hours and get a certificate, and then you can continue to be a director. That is training. And remuneration, very important. If you want best people, you want to attract the best people to your board of directors, you have to pay them what the market pays. As they have an expression in English, you pay peanut, you get monkeys, right? So you want the best people, you have to remunerate them according to market rate if you want to attract the best people. So that is a remuneration, very important aspect. And last but not least, succession planning. This is a very issue in Malaysia, okay? An issue in Malaysia because many of our big companies are family-owned companies. And then you have the founder and family members who are holding on very closely to the company. They don't want anybody else to come in. Okay, I mean this is a real issue in Malaysia. Okay, it's a well-known issue in Malaysia. So what happens is suddenly one fine day, the founder of the company just suddenly kick the bucket or pass away. Okay, and then you find because he didn't nominate his successor, he didn't nominate, clearly said that if anything happened to me after I leave this world, so and so will take over. No such thing was never mentioned in the board meeting. And then you'll have all the family members squabbling among themselves, and then have all sort of issues. I think you just Google, okay, you see some of the big companies in Malaysia. This is an issue. There is no proper succession planning. This is where the Western countries are more developed. Okay, they already have succession planning. If so and so he leaves the scene or is no longer around, then so and so will take over. This is called succession planning. So these are all the in respect of the leadership role. Okay, some of the things that the board needs to tackle in leadership role. The other role, as I mentioned, is the control role. The control role, we need to monitor the executive management. We cannot just appoint them and let them do whatever they like. Because if they are not checked upon, they may not pursue shareholders' wealth maximization. They might pursue their own wealth maximization. Okay, not to say that this has never happened. It's happened many, many times. Okay, so that is why, as a board of directors, board member, you need to play your control role. So what exactly we need to do in this role, control role of board of directors? Ensure accountability of organization to its owners. Always keep in mind, the owners are the shareholders. Okay, in the Anglo-Saxon model, which we are following in Malaysia, ownership is divorced from management. Ownership is divorced from management, which means that owners, they do not really know what is going on in the company. So that's why they appoint you as a board of directors to look out for their interests. Go back to that chart again. Go back to that slide again. Okay, I keep on repeating this many times. I don't know how many of you are doing it, but you should go back and see that slide. So board of directors, you are accountable to the shareholders. They appointed you. They appointed you not for fun, but to take care of their interests. You appoint the management. Yes, correct. So there's no direct relationship between the management and the owners. Management reports to you, BOD. You report to the owners, the shareholders. Okay. So another aspect is to ensure compliance with legal and regulatory requirements. So in respect of legal, in Malaysia, we have the what you call the Companies Act 1965, updated in 2016. So this is the legal requirements. So you need to be familiar with that if you're a board member, as well as regulatory requirements. So if you're a listed company, there's a Bursa Malaysia, BMLR, Bursa Malaysia listing requirements. There are many requirements from the Securities Commission of Malaysia, requirements from the Companies Commission of Malaysia. So all of this will come under the regulatory requirements. And then monitor performance of the organization on behalf of the owners. As I said, you don't just appoint and say, okay, done, my job is done. No, you need to monitor. You need to monitor the performance. The owners they are in the dark. They are in the dark. They don't know what's going on. They are depending on you. They're relying on you, the board of directors, to monitor on their behalf. So that comes under your control role of board of directors. And then to review adequacy of internal control and compliance systems. So this one is a specific role of the audit committee. Okay, we just spoke earlier about the three main committees, the remuneration committee, nomination committee, audit committee. So one of the important roles of the audit committee is to review the adequacy of the internal control and compliance system. So all of this comes under the control role of the board of directors. And then identify major risks and take and implement appropriate risk management system. Don't expect the management to do this. This is not their job. This is your job. You cannot pass the buck. You cannot pass the buck. Okay, this is the role of the board of directors. You have to identify what are the major risks and take the appropriate action to implement the risk management system. This is one of your important jobs as a board member. Okay, let me be very specific. We have a board committee, specific board committee for this, that is called the audit committee. This is the job of the audit committee. And then the next area is to ensure the reliability, integrity of financial reporting. So this financial reporting is part of the annual report, which the company issues at the end of every calendar year, or depending on their year, sometime maybe from June to July or whatever, but at the end of their reporting period, they have to come out with the annual report. And then we as board, is our responsibility to make sure that the information there inside the annual report is reliable, can be relied upon, integrity, is prepared in accordance with the relevant accounting standards. So the next bullet point, complies with the disclosure requirements and accounting standards. That is why currently in Malaysia, okay, as per the requirement of Bursa Malaysia and also Securities Commission of Malaysia, there has to be at least one, if not more than one, fully qualified professional accountant in the board of directors. It is his or her job to ensure this aspect. So that's why you are doing what the course you are doing, accounting and finance. If you top it up with a professional qualification, you are actually very marketable. You don't have to worry. If you have the relevant experience, many companies will be looking for you. Okay, many companies will be looking for you, which is a requirement under the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance, MCCG, that all boards must have minimum one, at least one, if not more than one, somebody with an with a background in accounting and finance. Okay, because this is part and parcel of the role of the board of directors. Ensure the reliability, integrity of financial reporting, ensure compliance with disclosure requirements and accounting standards. Okay, the next aspect is the board of directors decision making. The board retains discretionary power. Okay, the board has discretionary power, and there's a disclosure and transparency in which the board reaches its decisions. Again, this is part and parcel of best practice in corporate governance. You do not make your decisions in secrecy, because you have many stakeholders. You cannot do things in secret and then later on they discover, oh, okay, you did this, you did that, and then it comes out into the nowadays it's very difficult because of social media. Okay, any wrongdoing is quickly picked up and highlighted. Recently we had one case, this company in the oil and gas industry. Please go and I think it was Ethica Global, I forgot the name already. It was a major issue, major scandal. Okay, you just go and read it up. Okay, so board retains discretionary power and there's disclosure and transparency in which the board reaches its decisions. And then decisions must be well considered and in the interest of the company. This is again best practice in corporate governance. That's why we need to have independent directors. Independent directors. These are directors who have no personal stake in the company. They are appointed by the shareholders to look after and to take care of their interests, especially the minority shareholders. Okay, in Malaysia, we have this is another issue in Malaysia. This is a very old issue. Okay, very, very old issue that the dominant board members, they dominate the company, dominate the board meetings, and often they make decisions which are not in the best interest of the company, and sometimes they totally ignore the minority interests. So all of this is part and parcel of best practice in corporate governance. Okay, so I urge you, all of you, okay, to go through. Later on, I'm not sure if I've uploaded it on times, but later on, I'll just remind me, I will upload the MCCG on times, okay, so that you can go through it. And if you have some difficulty in understanding it, so bring it up in the tutorial class. Okay, I don't know why most of you don't talk during the tutorial class. That is the platform for you to ask questions. Okay, just remind me. I will put it up on time because it's a very important document as far as corporate governance in Malaysia is concerned. That is our source of reference. Okay, it is the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance 2021. Okay, just remind me in case I'll try and put it up, but in case I forget, remind me. Okay, board's decision making, they retain significant decisions. So I've just been hopping on this just now for the last half an hour. Significant important decision which the board cannot delegate to the senior management. Don't pass the buck. It is your responsibility as a board member. These are your responsibilities. You cannot pass the buck to the senior management. These are areas which are your responsibility. When I say your responsibility, I'm talking about the board as a collective. Board is not just one person, right? Board is not just one person. Depending on the size of the company, it could be. Usually most boards are in odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9. Odd numbers, 3, 5, 7, 9. So meaning they make decisions as a collective. Of course, they vote in the board meeting, and the majority usually wins, lah. Okay, but whatever it is a collective decision. It's not a one-man, unless the company is a family-owned company, where you have a founder, for example, and family members dominating the board. This is the problem in Malaysia. This is one of the problems in Malaysia. Okay, I just bring it up because this has been researched and it's been published and confirmed that many Malaysian companies, they are family-owned companies. So the founder of the company hanging on to the company and make sure that all the senior position held by family members. So sometimes the decision they make, they totally ignore the minority interests. Okay, so this is a real issue, a real problem in Malaysia. Okay, now, what are some of the things that you cannot delegate to the top management? For example, Responsibility for monitoring the performance of the top management. You cannot pass the buck. It is the responsibility of the board of directors. Like I said, you appoint them. You cannot say, oh, I appointed them, my job is done. Finish. No. You also have to monitor them. You have to watch them. Because like I said, if they're not being watched, then there's every chance or possibility that they might run the company in their own interest, in their own best interest. And this has happened many times, not only in Malaysia, but all over the world. If you look at all the scandals, Enron, Satya, many scandals, like I can't remember the names, Olympus, many scandals. Okay, basically what happened was the board of directors did not monitor, or in some cases they actually colluded. They become worse. Not only they did not monitor, but they colluded. When they collude, they become very difficult. And some more auditor also colluded, like in the case of Enron. Top management try to take the company, doing a lot of things for their own interests. And then Arthur Anderson, who was the auditor, supposed to look out for the shareholders, they also colluded. Then now become very difficult. Very difficult. Because these are the people you rely on, but instead of looking out for the shareholder, they look out for themselves. Okay, many scandals already. It's not just one or two, plenty. Just Google. Okay, major investment and divestment decisions, takeovers. Again, this one is the board. This is solely the responsibility of the board. You suddenly decide you want to go offshore, you want to invest in this company, invest in this project. This is the BOD's job, not the management job. Yeah, suddenly this, okay, I think this year we're looking at moving into Vietnam. Vietnam is a growing economy. One of the fastest growing economy in Southeast Asia is Vietnam. Okay, let's take advantage of that. Let's move some of our operation offshore. You don't expect management to make those kind of decision. It is the board of directors who have to make the decision. And divestment, okay, they look at their investment. Okay, for example, our investment in Burma or Myanmar. Okay, I think it's time for us to sell and chow from there. Why? The country is very unstable. They had a military coup, and they overthrew the government, and we have a big investment there. I think it's time to sell out our investment and leave this country. I mean, this is a decision made by the board of directors. You cannot expect management to do this thing. Okay, investment decision, divestment decision, takeovers, mergers, board of directors decision making, not for the management. And dividends. It's a very sensitive issue with the shareholders. Okay, because when shareholders invest, they're looking for two things: dividend for a regular income, dividend, and of course the capital gain. Okay, when they invest, the share was this price. When they exit, the share is this price. That's called the capital gain. So propose the dividend. If shareholders are looking for this, if possible, you maintain the dividend at the same level, or better still, increase the dividend. If you start decreasing the dividend, you don't maintain the dividend, and then become an issue. Okay, they'll become an issue. Then you're telling the shareholder, our company not doing so well. And then they will come and scream at you during the AGM. Okay, they will scream at you during the AGM. They won't be happy. So all of these important areas comes under the decision making of the board of directors. You cannot pass this responsibility to the management. It is not their responsibility. That's the main point I want to make. I hope you are very clear. Okay, these areas are the responsibility of the board of directors. They cannot pass the responsibility to the senior management or the top management. Cannot delegate them to the top management. Okay, just now I just mentioned and spoke about the Cadbury report. I spoke briefly about the Cadbury report in last week's lecture. As I mentioned, this was the first committee way back in 1992, headed by Sir Adrian Cadbury. So this is a very important report in corporate governance. So please make sure you read it up. Just Google Cadbury report. You will find it in the internet. So what are the recommendations that this Cadbury report made? What are the recommendations? They made a number of important recommendations to enhance the effectiveness of the board. For effective board. So what are the recommendations that they made? So these are some of the points that I have summarized in the slide. But I would recommend that you go and read the full report, the Cadbury report. Okay, it's available on the internet. First point is that the board should meet regularly. They don't specify. They say in the MCCG they say at least every quarter. Every quarter meaning every 3 months once. If you meet once a year, then it'll be a problem. You don't have time to tackle a problem. Every now and then a problem will arise. You need to tackle the issue. So meet regularly. So the advice is every quarter, at least once a quarter. At least once a quarter. A quarter is 3 months. And retain full effective control over the company. Meaning you must know what is going on in the company. Don't because you didn't really bother and then suddenly these things come out in the social media, people start talking about your company, and then only you get worked up and call for a meeting to discuss. No, that's not the way. Should meet regularly. Okay, at least a quarter, once every quarter. Monitor the performance of top management. I've been repeating this over and over again. I think by now you know what I'm saying. You cannot just appoint the top management and say, okay, we've done our job, now you get on with your job. No, you have to monitor them. If you don't monitor them, they will just do what they want to do. And many times it has been shown by evidence and in the literature, they run the company for their own benefit, self-interest. Okay. Okay. The other important recommendation from the Cadbury report headed by Sir Adrian Cadbury is important decisions should be referred to the board of directors. Cannot leave it to the management. Okay, cannot. It should be referred to the BOD. You tell the BOD what to, you tell the management what to do, not management tell you what to do. Okay, so remember, this is your other, just imagine you are a board of directors. So important decision should be referred to the board of directors. And then issue a formal schedule on the decision-making responsibilities, meaning, okay, these are the things, inform the management, these are the things that we will decide. So the management knows upfront. Okay, formal schedule. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, whatever. These are the matters which requires the board to decide, not for you to decide. Any problem, come back to us. Send it back to us and we will decide and let you know what you're supposed to do. Okay, so this is what they call effective board, and this is the recommendation in the Cadbury report. I'm repeating over and over again, so please go and check on the internet. Cadbury report, this was way back in 1992. The first major report in corporate governance by Sir Adrian Cadbury. Okay. Okay, this picture shows you the balanced and committed board of directors. Okay, you have like now we're talking about board diversity. Board diversity, of course, in today's climate. Okay, these people will probably even in the UK, because this is from the UK, right? They might question this board. Where's the diversity? It's all white people. It's all white people. Okay, people might question. At least they have gender diversity. I see they have some female directors as well. Okay, so they have gender diversity, but it looks like they all fit one profile only: male white or female white. So these are some of the issues that are being discussed these days in corporate governance: diversity, ethnic diversity, gender diversity. Okay, so that's how you will get a balanced board. Balance as in ethnic diversity, gender diversity. So this is what we call a balanced and committed board of directors. Okay, what are the components of a balanced board? Composition. They must have both executive directors and non-executive directors. There has to be a combination of both. Executive directors, non-executive directors must be in the board. With non-executive director, independent. They must be independent non-executive director, or called INET. Now, as defined by BMLR, BMLR stands for Bursa Malaysia Listing Requirement. Bursa Malaysia Listing Requirement, they came out with a practice note. From time to time, the Bursa Malaysia come out with a practice note. And MCCG's advice is that 1/3 of the board members should be INET. INET is independent non-executive directors. This is the advice from the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance. That's the first aspect, composition. There must be a balance between executive director and non-executive director, and at least 1/3 of the board member must be INET, independent non-executive directors. This is a requirement in the Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance. So if you're a listed company in Malaysia, you need to comply. You need to comply. Diverse skills and experience. So you got people from different background, not all accountant, not all lawyers, not all engineer, not all architect, different background. Diverse skills and experience to meet the needs of the business. So if you are, for example, in a particular plantation sector, for example, if you're in the plantation sector, as we have some of the biggest plantation companies in the world in Malaysia, so make sure you have some people with some background in this industry on the board. So they add value. We just in the earlier class in the tutorial, we looked at how to add value. Okay, so you have the people different background, diverse background, experience, and then you must also disclose all of this in the annual report. The qualification, their skill, the experience. Make sure if you're in the plantation sector, you have people with the background sitting in the board. If you are in the, what do you call, the property development sector, you got to have some people sitting in the board with experience in property development. That's how the business will grow. If you're in the banking and finance, make sure you have people with experience in banking and finance sitting on the board of directors. And then promote dialogue atmosphere. Thresh out everything in the meeting. Open dialogue atmosphere, not just the chairman or chairperson dominate the meeting. What I say goes. Autocratic style. That's not the way you have a best practice in corporate governance. There must be a dialogue atmosphere. So meaning all the board members actively participate in deliberation of issues. So ease of access to information. So if before board meeting, they say, I want this information, then the company secretary must supply them the information at least 2 weeks before the board meeting. For example, if the agenda says that this coming meeting, board meeting, we're going to discuss this issue. Okay, we are planning to invest in this big project in Vietnam. So please come to the meeting. So before that, I need to know what is this project all about. Give me the details. I need to have all the information. So when I come for the meeting, I have fair and sufficient time for discussion. I have all the information I need to know, and I can give my feedback in the meeting. This is all best practice. This is all best practice in corporate governance. So composition, the makeup of the board should be a balanced board, as in executive versus non-executive. That's one aspect, composition. The other aspect is diverse skills and experience. So if you're in plantation sector, you got a people plantation background in the board. If you're in the property development, you should have people similar experience in the board. If you are in IT sector, you got to have some IT people in the board and things like that. Okay. Otherwise, they're not contributing anything, just dead wood sitting in the meeting and collecting their allowance, board of directors allowance. And then you have a dialogue atmosphere, meaning everybody, every member, every board member is allowed to participate and give their opinion. But upfront, you must give them all the information they need so they know what's going to be discussed. They have all the information so they can come prepared and share. Allocated fair and sufficient time for discussion. So the chairperson must be fair. Okay, now we're going to discuss this issue. Okay, I'll go around the table. Okay, you have 15 minutes, say whatever you want to say, and then the company secretary will take the minute. So it's all on the record. Okay, this is on this date, we had this meeting, we discussed this issue, and we voted on it, and this person support, this person didn't support. Everything is transparent. Okay, everything is transparent. Components of a balanced board: achieve mutual respect by establish a spirit of partnership and mutual respect. Very, very important. In one of my earlier lectures, you will look at all the slides. The chairperson was talking, another person looking outside the window, another person crotcheting, another person talking among themselves, another one reading the newspaper, not like that. Okay, there should be a spirit of partnership and mutual respect among the directors. Okay, INET, independent non-executive directors. to be recognized by their contribution in promoting openness and trust. That's why the recommendation is to have a right balance, okay, a right balance between ED, executive directors, non-executive directors. So require the independent non-executive directors to be recognized by their contribution in promoting openness and trust. Acknowledge contributions made by the executive directors. So this is how you achieve mutual respect and have a balanced board of directors. So balanced board should have a balanced number of executive directors and non-executive directors. So when we talk about the balanced board of directors, what do we mean? First aspect is diversity. What do we mean by diversity? A right mix of different directors with a sufficient range of business experience and expertise. Okay, very important. No domination by a certain individual or group of people in the meeting, and independent. They have to be independent. So INET is the watchdog, check and balances for the shareholders. They are there to look out for the shareholders. So there has to be diversity. Make sure that there's no domination of board meeting by a particular individual or a group of individuals. They dominate the meeting and the other people are not given a chance to speak, and so on and so forth. And then there has to be independence. So this is where INETs come in. INET are independent non-executive directors. They act as the watchdog for the shareholders, and there is a system of checks and balances. So why we need to have a balanced board of directors? Why is it so important to have a balanced board of directors? For independence, for diversity, and for influence. So these are the most important aspects in BOD, balanced board of directors. Independence, there must be independence, there must be diversity, and not one individual or group of individuals dominate the board. They dominate the board and make all the decisions. The others just keep quiet. Okay. So in best practice in corporate governance is there must be a sufficient number of INETs. There must be diversity. Okay. So not just one individual or group of individuals dominate the board meetings. Okay. So with that, I've come to the end of the lecture for today. So now we'll return to the Teams area in case there are any questions. So in the meantime, I'll just go to camps and get the attendance. So if you have any questions, you can ask me. So just bear with me while I get the attendance code. Okay, you can see the passcode, so you can start doing the attendance. So can you see the code? P5PC9K. P5PC9K. Okay, so do it before the screen closes. So I'll return to the Teams chat area in case there are any questions that you have for me. Then I will answer your questions. So please feel free. Today we talked about the role of board of directors, the importance of balanced board, the role of independent non-executive directors, the role of directors, all these issues. These are all very, very important issues in corporate governance. Okay. So also as mentioned about the MCCG, Malaysian Code of Corporate Governance, which is a very important document as far as corporate governance in Malaysia is concerned. So take the time to go through it. Okay. So I hope to put it up on the time so that you can go through it yourself. And if there's something there that you can't really understand, you can always ask questions during the tutorial class. Okay. So now coming back to today's lecture, are there any questions in relation to today's lecture? Any particular attendance code? Okay, I've shared it in the chat area. In case you can't see it, in case you can't see my screen, I've shared it in the chat area. Okay. Yes, I want to come back to the lecture. Today's lecture, are there any particular questions that you want me to clarify in relation to the 16 slides that I went through just now? This is a very important aspect of corporate governance, board of directors. Because if you recall the slide from previous lectures, we had external stakeholders, we have internal stakeholders, then we have external auditors. Okay, so today we're talking about one component of the internal stakeholders, which is the board of directors. Very important. Okay, so they are appointed by the shareholders during the annual general meeting, and they are supposed to take care of the interests of the shareholders. So they appoint the top management to run the company. They cannot just appoint the top management and leave it at that. They have to monitor. Okay, again and again in the slide I talked about monitoring. Okay, monitoring. So we also today talked about the Cadbury report. Okay, first came out in 1992. Very important report in corporate governance. So please go to internet. The slides I just referred briefly. This information you can get, just Google, type Cadbury report. You will get a lot of information about the Cadbury report. So why is it so important? Because it is the pioneer. It is the pioneer, one of the earliest reports in this area of best practices in corporate governance. Okay, best practices in corporate governance was the Cadbury report 1992. Okay, so are there any questions in relation to today's lecture? Please ask me today if possible. We still have about 5 minutes or so. If there are no questions, then I'll probably exit. So I'm asking, is there any question or? So can I take it that there's no question? Any of those slides that you want me to go back to and explain it again? You can ask now. We had 16 slides today. Okay, and we put it up on times. So the last talking about the importance of a balanced board, components of a balanced board, effective board, Cadbury recommendations, board's decision making, control role of the board of directors, leadership role. Okay, basically we talked about the roles, and it's just briefly, we didn't go into the details. We will look at in one of the lectures later on. Nomination committee, remuneration committee, audit committee, the details we will study later on. Okay, so today basically we just took the overview. What is the role of the board of directors? What is the responsibility of the board of directors? What's the leadership role of the board of directors? The control role of the board of directors? Board decision making, effective board, what makes up an effective board, and then we also looked at components of a balanced board, what makes up a balanced board, components of a balanced board, importance, why a balanced board is important for diversity, influence, independence. Okay, so this last slide, why a balanced board. Okay, why a balanced board is important. So if there are no further questions, then I guess I will just are we using AI Proctor for the final exam? Sheelan Low. Sheelan Low. Are you there, Sheelan? Sheelan Low. Just curious, did you get some information saying that we are not using this, or so before I follow up with the what you call my colleagues in the school, is there any get some information saying that we may not be using this? Please let me
No,
know.
sir.
No.
I saw it under time, so I was just asking, are we using it?
You saw it where?
No, I saw under week 10. Then
Oh,
it's
that one is
AI
from
Proctor.
that one is from last semester. I forgot to
Oh,
hide it.
okay.
Okay, but for this semester, my understanding is that it is going to be used. Okay, my understanding is that it's going to be used. Is there any issue that you have in relation to this that I can bring it up to the management? Please let me know. or what you saw on times is based on previous semester. Okay, that's based from last semester. We did use it. Okay, but this semester, from what I know, we are using it. Okay, but if in case anything, will definitely inform you. I will definitely inform you. So my understanding is that we are using it. Okay, that's all I can say for now. My understanding is that we are using it until I hear something different, in which case I will give the feedback to you guys. Okay, so it looks like there's no further question, then I will exit. Okay,